cops off their tail. 3 years ago, a dark coven killed Seth's younger brother Jesse as part of a century-old cycle of ritual murders. No one had believed what Seth had seen that night. Then his parents died in a car wreck under unusual circumstances, and their home burned in a suspicious fire. All Seth had left was the fifth-wheeler and truck his parents intended to take on a retirement adventure, and the Hayabusa he'd bought as soon as he returned from his last tour of duty. Seth vowed vengeance, learning everything he could about the supernatural from his mentors, Milo and Toby. He went to Richmond, Virginia, to hunt down the first of the coven's witches and stop him from killing his next victim, Evan. Seth never expected to fall in love with the man he came to save. Evan made the split-second decision to go with Seth on his quest to stop the other coven members, and after almost a year together, they were headed to Cleveland on the trail of the fifth witch. Except that after dispatching 4 of the coven, Seth and Evan had lost the element of surprise. Seth feared that Willis Osborne, the fifth witch, knew they were coming for him and had decided to stop them first. "Do you think it was Osborne?" Evan gritted his teeth against the pain as Seth cleaned his wound. "Either Osborne wanted to send us a message, or we had the bad luck to run into a couple of armed assholes who shot at us for being gay," Seth replied. "I don't like either option." "How would Osborne know where to find us?" Evan hissed as Seth covered the graze with antibiotic ointment and closed it with a butterfly bandage. "He's a witch. I imagine there are locator spells since he knows who he's looking for," Seth said, carefully binding Evan's arm. "With the wardings on the camper and the truck, it might be harder to tell where we are. I never thought to ward the motorcycle. I guess sooner or later, the remaining witches would have heard about the ones we dispatched," Evan replied. "We wondered whether they kept track of each other. I guess now we know," Seth muttered. Seth cleaned up and put away the medic bag. When he returned, he had a glass of water and held out 2 ibuprofen and an antibiotic capsule, which Evan accepted gratefully. "Rest," Seth told him, slipping his fingers through Evan's dark chestnut hair and down his cheek. Evan leaned into the touch and kissed Seth's palm. "You got us away from them," Evan said quietly. "I thought we were going to die." "Not tonight, and not anytime soon," Seth replied, hoping it was a promise he could keep. Evan got up to head for the bedroom, and Seth turned to the door. "Where are you going?" Evan asked. "I'm going to see if there's a way to ward the damn bike." Seth paused. "Don't worry, I'll be in soon." "I'll keep the bed warm for you," Evan promised. Seth felt too jittery to sleep, and he figured that he'd just keep Evan awake. He shouldered into his jacket, slipped his gun into the waistband of his jeans, and took a small burlap bag tied shut with red string from a drawer near the door. "It's my fault they found us tonight. I didn't ward the bike. I nearly got Evan killed because I was sloppy." He paused on the top step to look out over the quiet campground. They had laid down protections around the truck and RV, good enough to keep out most creatures and low-level witches. It probably wouldn't protect them if Osborne decided to show up in person, but Seth doubted the witch would consider them worth his attention. Not when he could delegate their murder to his minions. Seth opened the leather saddlebag on the left side of the bike and stuffed the small burlap packet inside. Then he pulled a paint pen from his pocket and marked warding symbols on the inside of the bag's flap. He repeated the glyphs on the inside of the engine cover and beneath both fenders. A root woman in Charleston had shown Seth and Evan how to make hex bags for protection and defense. She'd also made more powerful bags for them herself and explained how to use a few basic hoodoo rituals to deflect attention and ward off evil. "Evan and I aren't in this alone anymore. We've got friends, allies. We've learned so much. Maybe we'll get lucky and live through this." Milo and Toby were hunters who had taken Seth in when he was raw and angry, nearly suicidal in his grief and rage. He'd spent almost 2 years with them, learning everything they could teach him about the supernatural, magic, monsters, and lore. The army trained Seth in modern weapons, but Milo and Toby taught him to use machetes and blessed swords, rituals, and rote spells. Even so, Seth had been at a serious disadvantage against the first of the coven he'd fought, and while he had saved Evan, escaping with their lives